A Plaguelands Media production.
Hey everyone, this is Hugh from Plaguelands Media bringing you another book review. This time we are looking at Lonesome Days, Savage Nights by Steve Niles and Salvatore Simeone. I apologize if I'm getting the name wrong. This is a graphic novel collection, volume 1 in the Stu Manning series. Stu Manning, of course, being a former police officer, now a private detective, but he is also a werewolf, and you know how much I love my fucking werewolf stories. So let's just get right into it without further ado. The next episode of So this is Lonesome Days, Savage Nights, written by Steve Niles and Salvatore Simeone. I apologize if I am mispronouncing the name. You might recognize Steve Niles as the author of the Cal McDonald Criminal Macabre short story collection I reviewed a little bit earlier. This is volume 1 of the Manning Files, which I was immediately drawn to because I am a huge fan of werewolves and the werewolf genre, and that is what this collection is technically about. So let's get straight into it here. So we start with Stu Manning. He is a private investigator taking some photos of a woman whose husband believes that she is cheating on him. He can't get the photos, so he turns himself into the werewolf that he is and manages to get some of the sneaky pics. Then we get a little bit of backstory. He was a rookie police officer. He and his partner were heading to a taco food truck. And while he was in an alley taking a piss, he got attacked by something. He doesn't exactly know what it is, but it kind of ripped him fairly well. He lost his weapon in the ensuing fight, and when his partner finds him and he comes around, his wounds are healed on their own. His partner kind of mocks him for losing his gun, and he becomes the laughingstock of the precinct, which causes him to quit his job, or he's kind of run out of his job. Stu runs into Stacy, who is a tenant in the building that he lives in. She has a kid. We don't really know a lot about her, but we end up finding out more. At this point, one of the old cops that Stu used to know comes and kind of offers him a job. So there's like gangs in the area that Stu lives in, and the cop basically says, listen, can you help us? The department isn't putting any resources into this, but I know that there's a massive problem, so can you step up and kind of do your thing? To which he dismisses the cop, basically tells him to fuck off. The cops didn't do anything for me, so why should I do anything for them? Then we have Mr. Sala, who is the head of the crime syndicate kind of a thing. And he's talking to his kind of gang members, telling them there's a leak in our organization. I want you to find it, and I want you to put it down for good. At this point, we see Stu's girlfriend, who is kind of coming to meet him. We see the goons that Sala has sent to take out Stacy. And this is just a wrong place, wrong time situation where they open fire on Stacy, but Stu is there, manages to protect Stacy and her kid, but his girlfriend that he was going to propose to ends up getting gunned down in the process. She is the one that kind of keeps the beast in check. She knows that he's a werewolf, and it's kind of her presence that manages to keep the beast inside. But Stu watches her get gunned down, and that is going to unleash all kinds of hell. Now, at this point in the story, the art especially, you get a lot of vibes of The Crow, the film that Brandon Lee was sadly killed while making. It's got a lot of that kind of feel to it at this point. We move into chapter 2, where we get some background on Stu and his lady while we switch between the funeral. And Stu reveals what he is to her, but she sticks with him. She doesn't really care. She manages to calm him down and get the beast kind of under control. But at this point, after seeing her killed, Stu is beyond kind of consolable, and he's kind of hitting the bottle now while looking at the ring that he was going to propose to his girlfriend with. His cop friend comes, offers him a drink, basically apologizes for what has happened, but lets Stu know that now is as good a time as any to get into the fight here. Stu disagrees with him, sends him on his way, is about to try and kind of kill himself, but realizes that he cannot actually do it. The beast won't let him kill himself, and at this point, he sees his girlfriend Audrey. She is dead. Now, this is very reminiscent of An American Werewolf in London, where the main character is constantly seeing the corpse of his friend that was killed in the werewolf attack. Audrey lets him know that he has a responsibility to the people. He has a gift, and he should be using that gift to help the neighborhood, which he does. He starts going around making sure, kind of patrolling almost, and then he finds a man who is abusing Stacy, the woman with the kid from earlier before. The beast comes out and ends up decapitating the guy, but we find out that the person who was basically abusing Stacy, seems to be like her pimp, was in fact the son of Mr. Sala, the mob boss at the beginning of the story, which Stu has now killed his only son. Okay, so at the morgue, Mr. Sala is identifying his kid. He gets his cronies together and basically wants whatever did this to his only son to be taken out. So we get a few of Mr. Sala's cronies here, basically letting him know that they're on the job. We get another like dream sequence of Stu and Audrey, where Stu actually proposes this time, which wasn't something that happened earlier because he couldn't. She was killed. And then he wakes up from the nightmare. At this point, Mr. Sala's cronies are going through the building, trying to get any evidence of who might have killed Mr. Sala's son. They end up torching the building, starting with the building manager. And Stu manages to basically get in there and rescue a ton of people from the building. specifically Stacy and her son. And while the building is burning and Stu is kind of hiding out, Stacy realizes that he was the one that saved her, even though it appeared to be some kind of a beast. Okay, we move into chapter 4, where we now have video footage of Mr. Sala's son and Stacy. Mr. Sala wants to find out who she is and what she knows and why her son was dealing with her. But we also get footage of Stu as a werewolf as well, taking out Mr. Sala and taking out Mr. Sala's son. So Mr. Sala is really interested to know kind of who this person is. So Stu has been tracking these people down, and he manages to trace them basically to an abandoned warehouse where all of the crime, the heads of the crime families are kind of gathered together, the gang members, I should say. And so Stu busts in there and just kind of does his thing, killing them all, ripping them all apart. He calls his cop friend to come and kind of clean up the mess. But there is one person left alive, and Mr. Sala gets a hold of him. And at this point, the cop and Stu are having their back and forth. The cop kind of realizes what is going on. Mr. Sala has the survivor of the attack in a room and watches him transform into a werewolf, at which point he manages to take him out with a single bullet to the head, and he now knows what he is up against, that the thing that killed his son is a werewolf, and he is about to go hunting. Stu shows his true self to his cop friend, who really doesn't fucking care at this point. He's trying to work out how they can use that to their advantage. They are going and checking out various kind of pawn shops and whatnot. Stu and the cop and Mr. Sala and his compadres. Stu uses his abilities to kind of terrorize people into giving them information and whatnot. At this point, they're kind of at a dead end, a stalemate, like where do we go? But Stu kind of gets his groove on and gets the down low on Mr. Sala, so to speak, while he and his cop friend are kind of discussing business. Mr. Sala at this point has kidnapped Stacy because he believes that it is her fault that his son was killed, and Stu realizes what has happened and what he has to do. So it is now a full-on attack on Mr. Sala's skyscraper with the cop and Stu as the werewolf. They kind of bust in. Mr. Sala's men do their thing. They kind of come to attack. But at this point, Stu has just gone full-on feral mode. Now, one of Mr. Sala's men, realizing that the villain is probably a werewolf, has like the bear spray, which he sprays at Stu to kind of incapacitate him, but it really doesn't work all that well. And Stu ends up making short work of Mr. Sala's lackeys. He finally gets to Mr. Sala himself, who has Stacy as a hostage. Stacy warns him that it's a trap, but Stu gets shot, which should have taken him out, but Stu, being Stu, realizes that for the greater good he needs to end this now. So he goes up against Mr. Sala, of course, holding him out of the window, tossing him out eventually in some fantastic art. The art in this book is just perfect. And Stu's cop friend tells Stu, don't worry, I'll make sure all this is kind of covered up. Then later at the diner, Stu and his cop friend are eating, and Stacy comes. She has just enrolled in the academy, and she knows that Stu is a werewolf, and that is going to be the beginning of a beautiful friendship, as they say, and that is where the book ends. So this was Lonesome Days, Savage Nights. Overall, I thought the story was a little bit generic, but that is okay. It was very reminiscent of The Crow. It's a revenge tale of all things. The art is what pushes this book for me. Like, the art is just beautiful. The gore is gory without being over the top. The color palette that has been used, the reds, the purples, the blues, just really, really beautiful art. And really interested to see more of the character of Stu Manning. What I will say is it is very reminiscent of Cal McDonald, the ex-cop who becomes a private investigator. In this case, not really dealing with the paranormal, but there are paranormal aspects in the story itself. But overall, just a beautifully done werewolf story. And I fucking love werewolf stories. So there you go. That was Lonesome Days, Savage Nights by Steve Niles and Salvatore Simeone. I apologize if I'm getting the name wrong. If you enjoyed this, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment, do all the good stuff. But most importantly, and I cannot stress this enough, have a fantastic rest of your day. And please read a fucking book, people.